do 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 do
Hey everyone, welcome to the Fun Bunker Film School. This is a group of college friends that get together and chat and learn about films from various genres and decades. We have a revolving group here on the show, but consistent-ish is me. I'm Zack, and consistent always is Chris. He's our teacher and my co-host. So Chris, how the heck are you?
I'm doing all right. I am doing very all right.
You know, I noticed your hat. It looks very spiffy.
Baby. Yes. It's got some Japanese lettering that's
why I like it. Yeah.
I've learned translate. I didn't know what the Japanese said before it. The Japanese on the hat said before I bought it. It says meat is good.
That's a good thing to wear on a hat.
Yeah.
Well, besides me and Chris, I did mention we have a revolving crew here. And tonight we're joined by David and Nathan. Hey, guys.
Hello there.
Hello.
So which one is which? We need to distinguish voices.
Yeah.
I'm David.
And we're done.
I am also David.
Okay, good. So we got two Davids. One of them is named Nathan.
Yeah, my other name is Nathan. Yeah.
Nice. That's cool. That's cool. Well, it's good to see y'all.
Good to see you too.
I'm the only one of this particular group that does not live in the Midwest anymore. And so...
It doesn't live in Dubuque specifically.
Yeah, it doesn't live in the same city.
I mean, I wasn't going to out you guys of where you live, but now you can go find these three
No,
gentlemen.
this is a pro doxing podcast.
Yeah.
In that case, you can find me in Greensboro, North Carolina. Yep. So I will be gone this Friday, but if you come back on Monday, I'll be here. So there you go.
Perfect for this episode that'll air in like 4 months.
That's neither here nor there.
Any Friday in general.
I'll make sure I'm also gone that Friday that it releases. Yep. Just consistency. Yeah. Well, this is the very first episode officially. We've had an introduction episode that has already been released. If you haven't listened to that, go back and check that out. We walk through each of the guys' stories, so you hopefully are already familiar with David and Nathan and some of their terrible movie choices of late. But besides that, the thrust of the show is getting into a film that we've all watched, most of us for the first time, that Chris has picked, selected for various reasons that he's probably going to walk us through. And yeah, it's fun. I hope it has banter. I hope we learn something. I learned something just from watching it. I think I was the last one to watch it because, like I said, they all lived together in one house, and so they got to watch it all together.
Oh, I wish we all lived in one house together. But yeah, we had a fun opportunity to watch it all together, which it won't happen for every episode.
Nope.
So, yeah.
Yep.
It was very fun to do that. So the movie that we watched. Can I just get into it here?
Yeah, go
the movie that we watched was Heat from 1995, directed by Michael Mann, starring Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. It is a heist action thriller. It is almost 3 hours long, so it can be kind of a hard sell these days, but was an easy sell at the time based on those two main actors, Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, getting together for the first time in a movie since they were technically in Godfather Part 2 together, but they were in separate time periods in the movie. Robert De Niro was playing a character in Italy that was a younger version of a character from the first film that's old, so they were in the film together, but they didn't share any scenes, and this movie has multiple scenes where they are directly interacting one-on-one versus each other. Very cops and robbers story. Yeah,
I do need to give a disclaimer that just like the doxing, we are spoiler heavy. Not just for this movie, but for many movies. So if you don't like spoilers, then please go watch Heat first. If you don't mind spoilers, then listen away and take a 3-hour break, go watch it, or just keep playing this episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Get that out of the way and on the air. I gotta say, so when this is just first impressions, I saw those two names. I was very excited because these are young De Niro and young Al, if I can call him that. And I definitely thought De Niro was going to be the good guy, and he's not. He's the bad guy. That threw me for a loop right away. I was like, "Oh, I'm all in. This is great. This is fantastic."
Yeah,
he's the bad guy, but you're rooting for him.
Yeah, that's the thing, right?
I feel like you're kind of.
I was rooting for him as well. Yeah, I wanted him to get away, not to get all the way to the end.
Until his teammate grabs a kid in the middle of a shootout, and then you're like, "Oh, that's right. These are the baddies."
Then I just wanted that guy to get gone. Like I was glad that Val Kilmer's guy. I was like, "Yeah, Chris, come on. Your wife still loves you. Yes. Nice."
Yeah, I mean, I think the film does a really good job of balancing that tension of just kind of presenting these two worlds, like the world of the LA Police Department and the world of these very professional thieves. And you're right. It doesn't present the thieves necessarily as good guys or even like really protagonists that you're rooting for, but you're with them for quite a while and you understand them and who they are. Mm-hmm. And then when you get to the scene in the middle of the movie where they finally have that big face off at the bank, it's you kind of, that's even still when I'm watching it, and I've seen it 4 or 5 times, like even still when I see that scene come up, I'm like, oh wait, like they're gonna start shooting each other. I don't want them to start shooting each other.
And there's people around, like people are gonna die, but this is such a tense moment. It's interesting that you put it that way because it's true. They never paint the bad guys, if you have to dichotomize it, as the good guys. It's not that type of movie, because some movies do that. They'll just straight up be like, the bad guys who I want you to root for. This is just it sets up scenes to create empathy with the characters. So you see them as very human. You're like, oh, they have marital problems. They're distant with their kid, or like it's even Al Pacino's character, he has a stepdaughter. And so you're like, oh man, like he really cares about her. And so they're very humanized characters. And so they're like, they're just relatable on these different fronts. And I think that's what draws you in at various levels. Like what David just said, when the guy grabs the kid, you're like, oh no, that's a no. We don't use children as hostages. So you suddenly distance yourself from that character. But then at the end, you're still rooting for the bad guy to get away. Right. And you're just like, he just wants to find a relationship and finally like move on, and he's trying to get out, so to speak, in some ways, but he still just kind of gets pulled back in. So it's just really good at humanizing its portrayal of both sides of the fence.
Yeah, it does. It does a kind of thing where De Niro's character repeatedly tells people throughout the movie that like you need to be able to have like no emotional connection to anything, like, and you need to be, that's where the title of the film comes from, is that quote where he's like, you need to be able to drop everything within 30 seconds if you feel the heat around the corner, but he like repeatedly denies that, like as he meets Edie, the girl, which I have some notes about her and whether she has good taste in men, but
the answer is no. Just that.
Don't talk to guys who are reading books about stress fractures and titanium at a coffee shop.
What you reading there? Why are you asking about my books, lady?
And he says, it's like, why do you care so much about the things I read or what I do, lady? He's such a charmer. But yeah, like he does grow an attachment, and there's also that scene where they're at the dinner table together, yes. Or like all the thieves or whatever are having like a family meal or whatever at a restaurant, and he's the only one that doesn't have like family with him and you know, you can kind of tell like he's starting to get lonely and wants to like share in something with somebody. Yeah.
I don't think I noticed that right off the bat, that when they're kind of celebrating that whatever, one of the heists, and it's got Chris has his kids. He has a kid, right?
Yep.
And his wife, and then
the other guy gets engaged right there, I think.
Well, Chirito's there with which is Tom Sizemore's character. He's there with like his wife, and he has like
a wife and kids too. Yeah.
Is it his wife? Because I thought it was like an engagement thing, but I guess he just buys her a ring.
There's like a gift. Yeah, he like gets her like nice jewelry or something.
Okay. Well, they had kids, so they had to be married.
Yes,
sorry.
Exactly.
Sorry, you're right.
They're thieves, but they're not,
Yeah, they're not animals.
Yeah, they're not immoral. Yeah.
No, I think
whatever their relationship was, he got her a ring.
I was gonna say, like, the other aspect, like when you look at De Niro's character, I feel like right off the bat, there's like an element of like professionalism to him. Like this is like an art almost, like, and he's like a professional. This is his job, and he like, you know, he does it well. And so there's an aspect of that, like, just because of that, you kind of like respect him a little more, and like, okay, you know, you kind of forget that he's like a professional at, you know, illegal things, but then like
robbing armored cars,
right? But then
using
you kind of
stolen ambulances,
right? But then right off the bat, you see like the other side of it, like he get you when they have Wayne Grow there as kind of like the hired hand that nobody really knows, and he's just like, you can tell he's not as smart, and he's like just in it for the money, and like he's not gonna, you know, he hasn't thought through everything like De Niro. So like, it kind of splits the crew, or at least in my mind, it's like, okay, the bad guys who are good at it are okay to root for, but the bad guys who are selfish, you know,
the bad guys. Well, and they really do establish the Wangro character as a bad guy. Like, you never once want to root for him. He's like, he's murdering women, and he's clearly bad news. Like, because I love how this movie, it's a complete like story. There's an intersection where they pull a heist, and it brings in the homicide crew, right? So that's where Al Pacino comes in. And then it ends at the culmination of like their final confrontation. So there's this complete story, but on the way it takes these threads. Like, the Wangro character was just such a wild card for me, because he has that hotel scene and murders that girl, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, this is completely extra, and yet it's not extra where I feel like a modern film would just be extra. But this was actually playing into other characters. It causes Al Pacino's marriage to fall apart a little bit more. Like, there's like dominoes, and then it leads to him getting hired by the really paranoid dude. Just like all these crazy things that the filmmaking or storytelling weaves in. And so I think Nathan's spot on that it does dichotomize the bad guys. There's like people who like what he says at the diner. He's like, do you see me knocking off liquor stores with Born to Lose tattooed on my chest?
Right.
It's like such a slap in the face of like, you know, I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, well, I guess we'll meet at the end then.
Yeah. I've got a lot of thoughts about that scene in particular too. That diner scene is so good for a lot of reasons. But I wanted to actually circle back to what you were saying about how it feels like a complete story, but there's all of these interweaving threads, and there's so many characters and everything. So this might actually help make sense of that and like why that is for this movie. So for context, so Michael Mann, the director of this film, he's made a number of critically acclaimed movies. Like he had done The Last of the Mohicans, like right before this, that had like won Academy Awards and stuff. But in the 80s, he was known a little bit for television. He had created or at least directed the pilot for Miami Vice. And so Miami Vice was a big hit in the 80s, big, serial television show in the 80s that took place in Miami and was like, cops busting drug runners and stuff. And then he directed another pilot that didn't get picked up, and it was called L.A. Takedown. And it is, if you can, I guess I haven't watched it. I should have watched it before doing this, but from what I've understand of it is that it is very close to Heat. Like it is focused on a cop and a robber, and like in the pilot they have the shootout. I want to say they even have the diner scene, but it's just not. It's with two guys that are very clearly not as good of actors as Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. And so it was this pilot that he did that never got picked up, and and it's LA, and so it's not as flashy or sexy as Miami is, and he that idea like kind of kept circling around in his head that he wanted to do something with it, and so then he worked with Art Linson, who is the producer of The Last of the Mohicans, and worked with him to help finance Heat and get that off the ground, got a screenplay going and everything. And so you can kind of feel that it almost has like a television aspect to it, where like I think today this would have been a mini series. Like the idea of like a mini series is so popular because you would have like probably a whole episode on Waingro, or you'd have a whole episode like of Natalie Portman trying to find her barrettes or whatever. Like,
oh, young Natalie Portman, that was a treat.
Isn't that so funny? I think it's like her second film or something like that.
It's very funny. I saw her on the billing, and I was like, "What? She's gonna be in this? Yeah, this is great."
Yeah, 4 years before she would be Amidala.
There's only 4 years difference. Good night.
Yes, this is 1995, and episode 1, The Phantom Menace, was
Star Wars episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Sorry, yeah.
Oh, thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah. Make sure you didn't confuse it with Star Trek: The Phantom Menace. So yeah, I think that's where that kind of that feeling is of like there's all of, and like that's why it's so long too. Like it's because they are like having to weave in like all of these different characters.
I think it worked. It worked great.
That's the thing, is that it's also kind of just rules, because you can kind of like if you can track it and you can follow it, like it's fun, and like the way it all comes together is really cool.
And it's interesting too, because some of the characters are quote unquote minor characters or side characters, but they're so crucial to the plot. Like what's his name? The dad in National Treasure.
John Voight.
Nate.
Nate.
Broker, kind of.
Yeah, he pops in and out so much, but if you didn't have him, so much would fall apart. Like literally, his whole escape plan, he pivots that at the end, and like he's going to get him a new out. And there's this whole emotional scene at the end where he's congratulating him on being able to let go emotionally of like killing Waingro. And you just can see on his face as he makes the bad decision to go back, like you're like seeing the tension like build. And I'm like, I was cheering because I was like, yes, he had this great moment. He lets go. He's going to go away on the plane. No, he didn't. I was like verbally like, no.
Even even visually, because that scene, like they drive through that tunnel that's lit up and it's completely white. All the stuff has been in the dark. That he's driving to the airport, to LAX in the dark, and then it's like he's like literally, it's like the light at the end of the tunnel, and then he gets out and it's dark again, and he's like, nope. He's like, I can't let this one go. I'm gonna go for revenge, and drives over to the hotel. Okay, I wanted to ask, like, having seen Heat now, like, are there scenes, or are there movies like post 1995 that you can like kind of think of that feel like you're like, oh, like was this influenced by Heat? Yes, Zach.
The Departed. Immediately.
Departed? Okay, yeah.
Came to my brain. Immediately. I actually thought of this when I was trying to explain it. I was like, imagine taking Ocean's 11 and taking out all the funniness of it and then mixing it in with the grittiness of The Departed. That's kind of how I would say is at my best, like baseball whack at describing this.
I was actually going to talk about the Ocean movies, just because It's that very professional criminal that's very easy to like get behind and root for. And they're stealing from like a bad person in the Ocean's movies. And like when they're doing the bank robbery, he's talking about how like your money's federally insured, you're not going to lose anything, we're only stealing from the banks. Is like that's like a very like Ocean's type thing to me, I feel like.
Yeah. It's they what was I thinking? They do the great thing of scratch this whole thing. I had a thought what you were saying.
Oh, I'm not gonna scratch it. It's gonna be in there.
It's gonna be in there. I had a total brain fart just now.
Another scene while Dave was talking that I thought about was not the whole movie. It does make me think of the very beginning bank robbery scene from The Dark Knight with the Joker.
Yes. That is very similar. Huge one. I'm glad you like landed there, because that's a huge one. Is that Christopher Nolan like made the whole like crew and cast like watch Heat, and it comes down to like they, in the Dark Knight they're wearing Joker masks or clown masks or whatever, but it like still evokes that same imagery with like the hockey mask. If you've seen Ben Affleck's The Town, that's another one that's like heists and they wear hockey masks, and or in that one it's the nun masks or whatever. And it's a lot more grounded and gritty, and you're getting a look into these guys' lives or whatever.
This is the only movie I've ever seen, so I don't have any other.
It's getting a lot of Boss Baby vibes from this
one. Film school is just for Nathan, in case anybody is wondering.
Didn't really even know what a movie was.
No shame. Yeah.
Well, no. A little more like recent. I don't know if you've seen it, but Hell or High Water with
dude.
Jeff Bridges and
that's on my to watch list.
I can't remember, but like it's definitely not like highbrow criminal, but there are some like heist, planning elements to it, and there's also kind of that like that face off between like the criminal and the law, and then kind of the like, I don't know, I feel like there's a little bit of the like same kind of person on different sides of the spectrum vibe as well. Like you kind of get, I'm sure that's, you kind of get that with Pacino and De Niro. Like you realize towards the end, like they're kind of the same guy. They're just like on different sides of the law, but like they're both isolated. They both like have trouble keeping connections. They're both slaves to their work. Like, and yet they're like, on opposite ends there.
Yeah, totally. Like that diner scene is them legitimately acknowledging to one another, like, we are the same. Like we are like the same person, but we are just like, like two sides of a coin or whatever. Like they're both messed up. They're both like completely dedicated to their jobs to a fault, and it's so good. The other thing that I think is really influential, like when you're just talking about the influence that Heat had, is partway through the film you have that awesome the bank heist that earlier in the film there's the truck heist, and then they have like the failed like metal heist or whatever, where they do feel, or they sniff out that that Macaulay, or not Macaulay, Hannah is watching them, but then the actual proper bank heist, they almost get through. The cops are closing in, and they Val Kilmer's the only one left, that hasn't gotten in the car left or whatever, but then he spots the cops and like immediately opens fire on them, and it is so loud, like the gunfire and everything is just so like it's erupting, and it's bouncing off of that just like valley of concrete buildings in LA or whatever, and that was very intentional as well. So back then, like when they would make these movies, you would usually ADR or just kind of like in post process put a bunch of gun shots in to make it sound loud or whatever. Michael Mann insisted that it's kind of his thing that he likes a lot of realism in his films, and so he insisted on using live rounds and just recording the audio of the live rounds, not like live, like they had bullets, they were blanks, but they were still, firing machine guns or assault rifles and shotguns, like
I
in
wondered.
downtown LA. Yeah, because it is cacophonous, like it is so loud. And the sound throughout the film is so cool. Like there's also, I want to like call out like that, the armored car at the beginning when they set off the EMP, and it there, like the semi truck like crashes into the armored car, and then they set off that charge. I guess it's not an EMP, it's the charge that's on the back of the armored vehicle.
The square.
And it breaks like all of the glass windows in the used car lot or whatever. Like all that kind of stuff is so cool, and it's so loud. And that's something that like I think a lot of action, movie directors would love to never use, like post-processed gunfire, if they don't have to. If they can use like the actual sounds of an area and have it be that loud and intense, like they'd prefer that.
Yeah, I noticed that because I said like I rewatched that shootout scene right before we started here, just to kill some time. And the thing that I really noticed was like how long the gunshots actually echoed for. Like you can hear it like go all the way down the street, which was really fun to hear. I think like the only other movie that I can recall that like the gunfire affected me in a similar way was the one from this year, Alex Garland's Civil War, where I think I actually heard something after I saw that where they wanted to do something like what they did with Heat. So it was like all the, the live blanks or however that terminology is, but the gunshots in that movie, they're like loud. And when I saw it in theater, like it like stops your heart every time there's a gunshot. And it's kind of a similar effect here.
The shootout scene, David, you just rewatched it. Does it have any music in the background, or does it cut out music as soon as he starts shooting?
No, so yeah, basically it was like Val Kilmer's character is like, it's got this like whole like building score. I don't know if we'll talk about the score much at all, but I love it. I've been listening to it while I've been working recently. But it builds and builds and builds, and then Val Kilmer sees the cop, and it basically like cuts off like right as that first gunshot goes.
Yeah, and then that's like the music for the rest of the time is just like guns and like windows breaking and like concrete exploding. Like, yeah,
it really sucks you in because you feel very drawn into the scene, like that you're there, because there's all this, there's people screaming, running. The cops are trying to push people down. The cops are getting shot. Like that was another thing that was impressive to me is like a lot of times there's not as many people actually dying in a shootout or getting hit. And in this one, it was like left and right. People be getting dropped. People are dying. People are getting shot. And it felt very like chaotic for lack of a better word. Like, or there was like a chaotic realism. Even when he grabs the kid as like a hostage, it was like, yeah, that sounds crazy. Because that's probably what people end up doing. Like they don't plan these things. They just are trying to get away, and stuff goes wrong, and it goes really wrong. Like the guy got separated. Like that obviously was not the plan. But you've got De Niro carrying Chris out of the gunfire, but he leaves his other buddy because he's too far away, and yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah, or even just like the just like talking about like how like just the things go wrong, like the you have the Dennis Haysbert character, like who's the driver that they he's just gotten out of jail and they hire
the Allstate guy.
The Allstate guy. Yes. Yeah. There's got to be some parody commercial where they like use those clips and talking about auto insurance as he's like getting blown away like in the car or whatever. So like that whole, it's like he takes that chance or whatever and like pays for it. And it's like, also like that goes back to like that would not be a character probably that they would focus on if it wasn't like bred from a TV show.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I'm remembering what I was gonna say after David was talking about Ocean's 11, and thinking about that shootout scene is I think a thing that's pretty universal in a lot of good storytelling is that people like watching people be like proficient at something that they don't know anything about, like, and so like in Ocean's 11, you like watching them pull off the heists and stuff because, and all these heist movies, it's like cool to watch people like do something professionally that we're probably
That
not
you've always
going to go.
wanted to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Like
I've
rob a
always
bank.
wanted to rob an armored car, get a bunch of bonds out of an armored car, and then sell them back for insurance.
Gosh.
And so yeah, like, and that goes through a lot of movies, too. Like I think about like something like The Martian, where it's like you're watching a guy like problem solve and like come up with all these like ingenious things, and he's like good at what he does, which is in that movie being a botanist that makes potatoes on Mars. And so that scene too, like kind of coming back to the realism of the shootout that's happening after the bank heist. I love watching how they must have some military background. And I think they mentioned like Hannah, when he's finally getting like the profile on him, that like Macaulay had like background in like the Marines or the Navy or something like that, because like the way that they move from car to car, like one at a time, like they're like progressing down the street but like laying down suppressive fire for each other is so cool. And like watching how they like navigate through the streets when they're like cornered on both sides, like they're having to lay down fire like both directions of the street and everything. Like it's just so cool, and it's so captivating to watch. Like
It felt very like inescapable too. Like I don't know, like it. First of all, I feel like I wasn't expecting, like up until that point, they've been so focused on like in and out, minimal disruption. Like even at this, like the very start, the armored car, like Wayne Grove shoots that guy, and it kind of like throws everything off, and that's why it's like, so it's like up until that point, we're avoiding any sort of like you know unnecessary. And so that's the other part too, going back to the idea of like you kind of root for him. It's like a little bit noble because like they're not killing people just because like he's trying, he got mad at him because he killed the guys. But then all of a sudden with the bank heist, it just like explodes into all out like war. And so it's like yeah, so that part, like I didn't necessarily expect it to go right to that. And then it does feel very much like, I don't know, like they're not going to get out of this, like they're outnumbered like crazily. And so it feels like a death sentence, and yet they, like you said, you watch them like, proficiently escape the police.
Yeah. And it's such a long scene. Like, because there is, like Nathan's saying, there's this element of like, this is going so smooth, and not just movie smooth. Like they've done their homework. The bank is going well. Like they're treating the people humanely. Like he props up a dude that he punched in the face. He's like, no, you're going to want to let that bleed. Like, don't lean forward. You need to lean back. Like he's telling him how to handle his bloody nose. And then it's just in like half a second, the heat managed to get there in time. And so it's that half a second shift where if they had missed them by 1 minute, they would have been gone. But it all went crazy. And then the scene is so long. It's not like, I feel like with older movies, they really let you sit in the moment. I'm noticing this with older movies, especially in like rewatches of some of the older movies I'm doing. It gives you this moment of sitting in something. And I feel like in a modern movie, we'd immediately jump into the car and it would be a car chase.
Yep.
Like it would be a lot of shooting, but it'd be fast and be furious, literally. And then you'd have these like crazy big moments, but it would never let you sit with the character and like what they're experiencing. But like you said, the going car to car and hearing them yell, "Go, go, I got you," is like drawing you in. Like these are just people trying to get away. They're not superheroes. They're not like even though they're professionals, they're just human. And they have to escape this impossible situation. So it's really good storytelling.
Yeah.
I like that they set it up in that the armored car heist right from the get go that they're willing to flip that switch from being non-violent to violent. As when Waingro, kills the one guard, who didn't look like the gun was moving to me, but Waingro's gonna
Nope.
Waingro.
He just
They don't hesitate to say like, okay, well, plans changed now, so we had to take care of the other ones, double tap, and on our way.
yeah. Oh man. Okay, so we've talked a lot about like the criminals, but there is that whole other half. Like, what did you guys think about the Pacino side of things and like the kind of police procedural and the detective side of things as he's trying to nail these guys?
I loved that he was the most potty mouth character in the entire movie.
He's so unhinged. Yeah.
He unhinges, like even when he's confronting his like sources, and you're like, this guy's gonna kill him. Like he's gonna kill his source right now at the dogfighting yard.
Yes. Right. Yeah. That. Yeah. That early scene where he's meeting with, I guess an informant basically, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he starts yelling. So it's funny because like amongst like people who were a big fan of like Heat, like for years and years or whatever, people are always just like what's wrong with like Vincent Hanna? Like he seems like he's like out of his mind, like in some of those scenes, like, and like, is he like high or something like that? And like it was only like a few years ago, uh Christopher Nolan was actually doing some sort of panel with Michael Mann, Robert De Niro, and Al Pacino. And Al Pacino was finally like, well, hey, like in the original script, like, and I think it was taken out of the original script, but like it heavily implied or directly written that like his character was doing cocaine all the time. And so Al Pacino like carried that into the film, and it was just like, in his head canon as he's like, getting prepared to do the scenes or whatever.
Cocaine.
He's like, I'm, my character's like doing a bump right before he goes and, starts yelling at this guy and telling him, give me all you got. Give me all you got.
But go ahead.
I don't think I've seen a movie with Pacino, and so that was I had the same thought, like he's like insane, and I was like, is this just like how Al Pacino acts? Like, is this just part of his characters? Because then what's the other part where he's talking about the, who's he talking to about the girl?
Oh, the boyfriend.
Hank is
Chris's
wife.
Yeah, he's got a great ass. Or what is he?
Yep.
Big ol'. It's the hand motion for me. Like it's I just assumed that he was so grumpy because the guy that was sleeping with his wife was also watching his TV. It's like the biggest betrayal in the whole movie.
So funny, that whole scene. I don't think I have a quotes section, but that's one of my favorite quotes is when he's talking about how he's like, you can come here, you can. What does he say? He says like, you can ball my wife, you can live in her like ex-husband's dead tech postmodern stupid house or whatever, but don't watch my television set. And he takes his like little 13-inch TV, like, oh, it's so
and
good.
Then he kicks out of the car. No, I liked his character in the context. It's funny that you said the cocaine thing because it makes a lot of sense. And it still works without it, but it actually does make a lot of sense. His entire character is always coping with this life he's trying to stop. He's trying to stop all the bad guys in the world, and it's literally destroying him from the inside out. And he feels like he can't share that with anybody because if he does, like he has to segregate his life. And so his wife, his current wife, his third wife, is like, you never share with me. And he's like, oh, you want me to share this addict that cooked his child in a microwave? You want me to share that, sweetheart? And then she's like, she's like, no, I obviously don't want you to share that. And he's like, you see, I have to deal with this every day. This is what I'm keeping from you. And that's his whole life. It's like, he wants a normal life. He wants a wife and kids. And he loves his stepdaughter, as we see from her very shocking scene. Holy cow. Was not expecting that. But even at the end, like, so spoiler, his stepdaughter tries to commit suicide, and he's the one that finds her and saves her, takes her to the hospital, and his wife, who's becoming his ex-wife, I guess, says she chose you because her dad never shows up. And that was really meaningful like moment for me. I was like, man, that's his one relationship he seems to be getting right, is like he loves his stepdaughter, where she sees him as a dad figure that shows
it's
up.
funny how much he truly actually does seem to care about others. And like there's also the scene when he shows up at the crime scene for the woman that like the young prostitute basically that Waingro kills, and he is like consoling the mother, like, and he's
But,
more
like,
concerned about
genuinely.
that than like he's like genuinely, like, when he sees her coming in, he's not just yelling like, get her out of here, you know, like she can't handle this. Like he like goes and is like embracing her, and like, you know, he's like that genuine empathy for him or whatever. And even when he goes and finally meets somebody that's as crazy as he is, when he finally has that the scene in the diner with De Niro, you know, and they both talk about it. They're like, however, like if it comes down to it, like I'm gonna put you down, and
I will
put you down too. Yeah, like I will kill you without hesitation. Yeah.
It just feels like he's constantly struggling with like, I don't know how to do anything else, and this is like, it's a good thing I'm doing. Like I'm stopping bad guys, but it's just he kind of acknowledges and lives with the fact that he'll never have a normal life. He's like, because when De Niro asks him, he's like, "Is that your life? Baseball,
all barbecues and ball games,
barbecues and ball." He's like, "Oh no, my life is horrible," and he goes off on it. And he's like, "But that's what I do, is I stop you guys." And I was like, "Dang, like that's the sacrifice he's willing to make, because he's obsessed, sure, but like he's stopping the De Niros out of the world."
Yes.
Yeah, I love that he has this, just he's like fascinated by De Niro's character. Like when they're like doing that scene that's like in the shipping yard or whatever, he's like, these guys are good. Like he admires his work, and like I think he, as a detective, loves to break that stuff down. He really enjoys getting into the minds of these criminals and figuring out what their next moves are going to be. And it's like this respect when he realizes at different points throughout the movie that De Niro has gained the upper hand on him. And I think that was my favorite aspect of the movie, was like it was this constant back and forth of like who you think is kind of in the lead in this
who has the upper
competition hand that they've got going on between each other.
And it's cool because De Niro keeps his cool the whole movie, except the end, and it comes out that he is very much like Al Pacino.
Yes,
and he goes off the walls. And sometimes a character in a movie does a really dumb thing, and you're like, "Don't do the dumb thing," and there's no reason for him to do the dumb thing. But this time, it was like, no, we know why, and we see it coming, and it even makes sense in the canon of the movie. But you still shouldn't do this dumb thing.
Right, yeah. You don't need to kill the Waingros of your life.
I think there's a legitimate, like...
Even if the Waingros deserve to die. Sorry, Nathan.
They definitely do. Like, there were, like, several points. Like I said, even with the shootout, like, that seemed very inescapable. Even when they, like, have them at the metal, heist, I remember thinking, like, this feels like they're kind of, like, right in the middle of the trap. Like, how are they going to get out of this? Like, there's several points where it feels like Pacino has them, like, right where he needs to, and then they slip away still. And so, but that makes it makes all of those instances, like, legitimately, like, tense, because I don't know that they're going to get out of it this time. Like, last time I didn't think they would, and they did. I don't know. So it makes them all
sure.
Go ahead. I was gonna say, I keep thinking too, back to your comment of like the like television or like serializedness of it, because there are so many different plot lines at the same time, but yet they don't feel disjointed. Like, you've got even like villains, like you've got Waingro, who's kind of the overarching bad guy you want to he comes and goes, and
Nobody likes,
nobody likes him. You've got Pacino, who they're like obviously back and forth chasing each other, and then you've also got the whole like uh, investment banker guy who
Yes.
like they steal the bonds from, and like I honestly kind of forgot about that as we were talking about like there's a whole section here where he's like trying to kill them.
Van Zant.
Van Zant, yeah, that's right.
And
And
They
then you've
even
got
they
like
bring him up because they're like, "Do you really want to start a turf war with Van Zant when the heat is on us?" And they're like, "No, we're not going to do that." So I was like, "Oh, he's done. Like his plot line is gone."
yeah,
but then it all has to loop back around
and
because
and
they
then even
know
like
where Waingro is, or Waingro comes to them to like give them information on the Collie's crew.
that's right.
Yes.
Yep.
That's right. And then you've even got like you said, Pacino's stepdaughter, committing suicide, and then like, it's just like there's all these thinking back now. There's like all these seemingly disjointed like plots, but in the moment, like it all flows together and comes back together
Well,
seamlessly.
it's crazy because when his stepdaughter she pulls through, which is great, and what that brings him and his ex-wife like to a closure of a peaceful closure of like, we're not going to work out, but you know what, we're gonna like, we still kind of love each other in a different way, and we realize that we love each other over this stepdaughter, because like they part peacefully after that heavy confrontation that they had. And you have like Chris and his wife, she's put in this no-win situation for her of choosing between Chris and her son, and she chooses them both, and somehow she gets out of that and Chris gets away. Like I should not, but I did cheer for them because she gave him the signal of like, no, the cops are in here, and I'm like, oh, is he gonna get away? He's not. They have a block coming, and then he does, and you're like, okay, so he like, their story was genuinely the only one that ended like completely happy, because Chris got away and the wife kept her son, and they neither went to jail.
And also probably not a great like healthy relationship between the two of them.
Yeah,
We're
they need
talking
a
about
little bit of counseling.
we're talking about Neil and was it Edie? Is that the
Edie, yeah.
Yeah, also not quite a healthy.
And then it's Chris and what's Charlene, Ashley Judd, yeah. And
Dominic is his son.
Yeah, I think it's so fun. Like, so like the Rewatchables is a podcast that has really adored this film, and they've done like 3 episodes on Heat or whatever. And so The Ringer is like a website that also loves like sports gambling and stuff, and they talk about their like, so like how bad like which Super Bowl, because he mentions that he like lost a ton of money on the Super Bowl, and they're like, which one was he lose? Like, which one did he lose on? And they're like, I think it was one like a bad Chargers team kind of like stumbled their way to the Super Bowl in like '94. Like, they're like, was he really like in on the defense of the Chargers? And yeah, it's very funny. But
he's great at what he does. Terrible gambler.
It's
terrible
gambler.
In the canon of the movie, he's a bad gambler.
They even go down like theorize as far as like, because at the beginning there's that scene at the beginning of the film, like the first time you see Chris Shaharlis, he's like at that like hardware like yard basically in Arizona with a fake driver's license and just buys dynamite with
buying the dynamite
cash and a fake,
one does,
a fake ID
with cash.
And so they're like, so if he's going down to Arizona, or if he's going down to like Phoenix or whatever to go buy explosives all the time, he's probably just going to Vegas on the way back, and, like completely emptying his pockets.
Just as you would pass by Fairway on the way home, he just stops by Vegas.
Yes. He stops by Vegas, finds his bookie. Yeah, so fun.
Well, and it's funny because like De Niro's character looks at him, and De Niro cares about his crew like a ton. You see that throughout the film. He does have attachments, but his advice sticks, and he sticks with his advice all the way to the end. He leaves his woman and runs, but he tells Chris, he's like, we've been pulling like tons of scores. What have you done with the money that you're in this bad? And he's like, I've gambled it. And he's like, what the heck is wrong with you?
Yeah. Oh man, the sun rises and sets with her man.
Sun rises and sets with her.
I love that. I think the following exchange is like, "That's so okay, okay." Like,
Okay. Good old Val Kilmer.
yeah, that I do like that scene at the end where he like goes to see her or whatever, and the police are with him, or and she gives him that signal or whatever, and yeah, like you're right. It's like the one like good thing that comes out of it. Although then you do kind of wonder about like Dominic, like if he is gonna get, because the cop tells it's like, he's gonna go like foster homes, he's gonna get put in the system, like, and it's gonna screw him for the rest of his life.
I think it was implied that they believed her, that it was not the guy, because again, this movie only works because it's set in 95 and they don't have the technology of
exactly.
2024.
Yeah,
where they're like, you're Val Kilmer, you are the dude we're looking for.
You just cut off your ponytail. That's all you did.
You dyed your hair, buddy. That's the only difference here. But it was good. Like she didn't want to betray Chris, but she did for her son. And then she tries to play this game, and there's a second where I'm like, no, the cop knows. The cop knows that she lied. And then it's like, oh, he got away. He got away flat.
Yeah.
I felt like
go ahead.
Pacino knew in that she was maybe trying to that she was lying. Yeah. But there was something in him that wanted to like let it go. That's just like,
you mean the other cop? Because Pacino at that point
not
is chasing
Pacino,
down
sorry.
Pauly. It's that other cop.
The other guy.
Yeah, the other cop.
I think he knows that she's but and it's similar to the metal when they're trying to steal from all the aluminum or the titanium or whatever, the precious metals or whatever. When they're just like, we can't like get them for just that, like we don't have enough like cause, or it's like what they do 6 months, they get out or whatever.
That is something you asked about the cops and how the system works. Like they're very honorable the whole movie. They're not dirty.
Sure, yeah.
They stick to procedure really well. At times where you're like, if you bent it, you'd have your guy. But like Nathan was pointing out, they had him, and he's like, nope. Like I want to get him, not just for breaking and entering. Like I got to get him for something huge because we got to put him away. I don't want to get him on a misdemeanor and he's out and gone to the next state or wherever.
We'll say he probably had a lot of paperwork after they found out that he used one of the helicopters just to locate him to go have coffee with him and then let him go.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions.
Probably a tough conversation with the boss there.
You know what it reminds me of? You know what it reminds me of is because he like in the original Halo like video game, when you would like you could just go up to like random grunts and like trade their sniper rifle for your pistol, or you could like kick them out of the car and drive it yourself or whatever. Like it's kind of what he does. Like he goes and like requisitions an LAPD helicopter to take him. Yep. And like just like, all right, I'm taking your car. Like like I
like, get out, fly me over here.
He just held X over their head and
X for doubt, maybe.
Yeah, that's so funny. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to note about the film? Or I think how I'd kind of like to do this is maybe if we give like a 1 to 5 star rating if you want, or just kind of have like a final thoughts about the movie. We could just kind of go one by one.
Can we give a letterboxd rating? Can we give half stars?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I was going to come back to you mentioned Edie's choice in Men.
Oh yeah.
It was interesting to me to think like theoretically, I guess maybe thinking back, maybe she knew, but like this whole relationship, she doesn't know that he's like a professional heist man, thief. And so she's like in love with him, and then finds out he was just involved in like a shootout downtown. And like takes some convincing, I guess. But then she's like, okay, fine. I'll still run away with you to wherever. Like, what? So I don't know. I just feel like any reasonable like moral person would be like, oh crap, this guy is terrible. I'm
He's a
gonna leave.
psycho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Although
she's
the
like,
other women, like the other like wives of the other thieves, like are all
they're also aware.
they all
Yeah.
acknowledge it. They all like know it. Like the Chirito's wife is like gets the jewelry and she's like so happy about it, and like
Yeah.
But don't
Ashley
ask him
Judd's-
where it came from.
Yeah, Ashley Judd is like mad about like how little he's taking home because he's got
Right.
these gambling debts or whatever, and she's like,
Do you
"There's
think
no
they,
way
like,
you only
get
got like
together?
$8,000." Yeah.
Oh, they
outside of these
definitely they have a
events and
mob wives circle. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like
book club.
Book club.
You guys haven't? Has anybody here seen Goodfellas?
No.
I've not.
Okay, there's like a whole thing in that movie about like the mob wives and stuff. So, anyways, yeah, but Edie is such an interesting character, yeah, because there's so many red flags. Like if you think about like, it's like first off, she meets this guy at like a restaurant, and he's like super standoffish. He's reading some book about stress fractures in titanium. It's like
So weird.
why do you care about what I read and what I do, lady? And then puts the charms on her or whatever. But then like his apartment has like no furniture.
That's right.
He doesn't have it. Like when Chris asks him about that, he's just like, I'll get around to it.
Yeah. When I get around to it.
It's like a glass cube out like by the ocean.
Yes,
Just
yeah. It's really
cube
cool
of
property.
sadness.
But it represents the inside of his soul.
Yeah, exactly. He looks out and
He's empty
that
inside.
ocean is as vast as
His buddies
void
sleep
in his
on
heart.
a jacket on the floor,
Yeah.
hungover and drunk. Oh, well, if you're asking for a rating, I can give one.
Okay.
Okay, so when I initially watched this, I waffled a little bit between 4.5 and a 5, and I ended up bumping it straight to a 5, just purely on enjoyment. Like, it was just like I was saying off air when I was talking to my brother. I was like, it's 3 hours and it's an action movie, and I was riveted the whole time, and I wanted to see the end. I never felt bored. It was enjoyable. It had like a lot of character development and great action, and so easy 5-star movie for me. So that was my enjoyment of it.
Nice. David?
Yeah, I gave it a 5 as well on Letterboxd when I logged it. It's so enjoyable, like we've been talking about, to see people be like really good at what they do, and you get two different aspects of it. And I am a sucker for the two sides of the same coin type of story. So that really scratched that itch for me. And I'm not going to sit here and wax poetic about the performances, because I think everything that can be said has been said about those two guys, and just like all the minor characters are on the top of their game as well. So I was thoroughly impressed, and yeah, really enjoyed it.
Nice. Nathan?
Yeah, I think I would I get 4.5 because nothing's perfect.
Yes. Yes.
No,
yeah,
I guess
we
I
have
would,
that guy.
but I don't have any like trying to think of like what would detract it for me.
Would you watch it with your children?
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Was your viewing at all, informed or change your opinion by the fact that your dog threw up partway through it?
Yeah,
That's the 0.5-star right there.
that was great. I don't know if they told you that so we're all watching it in my basement, and I paused it to go get some Busch lattes out of the fridge,
Nice.
and my little Yorkie dog ran down, and he's just super hyper, so he's jumping around. I think he's licking both of you,
Mhm.
and then apparently Chris said he just stopped, went down to the corner of the room, barfed, and then left.
That's how I feel about Heat, y'all. See
Thanks,
you
dude.
later.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. It was so funny. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think I'd give it 4.5, 5. I think the more I think about it, it's a great movie. It's same thing. I thought it's 3 hours long, but it didn't feel like it's not like I didn't really have to like. Oh man, how much longer is left in this? Like the pacing felt right. Even when it seems like it shouldn't have. Like we said, there's so many different like intersecting stories and plot lines and characters. Like the pacing felt, fine. The action was great. The character development, um, yeah, the tension. Will they, won't they? Who's gonna win? Who's gonna come up on top? Um, and even still, like even at the very end, so like Pacino gets the upper hand and gets him, and it's like even after it's like, man, I don't know if that's what I wanted to happen. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know who I wanted to win at the end there when they're which we didn't want to talk about that scene, but that was also the ending scene in the
The ending is really cool.
yeah.
Yeah, when he's holding his hand and he's dying, just this like we could have been brothers moment. And
Well, even just
I'm
like
gonna
the
stick with
chase
you.
through the like tarmac of the airport, which I
Mm-hmm.
also love that apparently LAX tarmac is just like one fence hop
One
away
fence,
from
yeah.
being
Even pre
It's-
2001, that's a little bit of a stretch.
It's
Yeah, right.
1995, y'all. Do whatever the heck you want.
But like some of the maybe this is getting too like "Ugh, film bro, but like the like lights coming and going and like the darkness kind
Sure.
of you think of like the whole uh rear window like flash scene where like you can't see what's going on and then like the light lightens it up and
Yeah.
I love how they focus on the shadows in that scene, so it actually like sets it up to like because it's from Pacino's point of view. He sees like how the
Mhm.
shadows are moving when the planes come by, and that's how he ends up
how he finds
using
him.
the
Yeah,
shadows. Yeah,
yeah, but I like yeah, so even to the very end, like I don't know who's gonna come up on top, and then I'm like I don't even know if I don't know who I wanted to win in that situation
Yeah.
because it feels like um yeah, I don't know, but that was a great way to end it, and like yeah, the mutual respect that they have for each other that you kind of see. um but it went back to that the diner scene when he's like, well, neither of us are going to hesitate to put the other one down when it comes down to it. Like
Yeah.
Right.
I may respect you, but I still have my reasons for not joining you, I guess, or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like an
um
acknowledgement or understanding.
yeah. um yeah, that was great.
One other thing I want to say, I touched on this a little bit, but I think this is just a sign I'm getting old. But the more and more I watch films that are older, like from the 80s, early 90s, there's this like gritty feel to them, like just very like that you because of the type of cameras they were using and different like ways they
Yeah,
were
they're
just
shooting on film. Yeah.
right. And
That's a big
it's
thing.
the sounds that like certain buttons make or sound effects make or the way they use analog things in their movies because of the time period, it just feels so like it's just such a tactile feeling of watching.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I say a tactile.
It's
Yes.
really enjoyable. So I've started to enjoy that a lot more, and I found myself noticing that in this film, just how they had to use stopwatches and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
you don't have an iPhone counting down in your AirPod as you rob the bank.
Yeah.
Hey Siri, how long do I have left before they
Yeah.
come?
Right. How long before the cops show up? Yeah. I don't. I always have to research this kind of stuff, but there's what was that?
Speaking of Siri, thanks. Thank you.
Funny. Cinematography stuff I'm not always good about picking out myself on watching it, but I saw as I was doing some research into this movie, people were talking about how there's a lot of like really deep shots in the movie that are shot with like almost like a telephoto lens that feels like you're like watching these characters as if you're on the stakeout yourself. You've got these these big deep focus stuff, like even the diner scene, it's so close up on them or whatever, but the cameras are pretty far back, or at least the lenses make it appear as such. Yeah.
That's cool.
So it's stuff like that, like along with like the sound as you're mentioning, like all of the sounds, like when these just the diegetic sounds that are happening when he's going through the hospital at the beginning, or he's going through the hotel, like all of that kind of stuff really like lends itself to the movie, and giving it that feel. So yeah, this is a 5-star for me as well. Like as I thought about this, I was like, well, if I'm choosing the movies, I'm not going to choose too many movies that I think are like 3 stars, but I'd love to get opinions if people didn't like them and stuff too. So yeah, it's a 5-star for me. Like it's so cool. Like I think that's, at the end of the day, it's like, it's just like a dude's rock movie. It's so cool. I love the interplay between De Niro and Pacino. Like I'm not even sure which one I think gives a better performance in the film. Like they are both so good and different. Like they are different characters in terms of like how they play their scenes. Like De Niro's always very cool and calm and collected. You know, like he has those scenes where like the rage starts to bubble up. You know, like when he like slams Wayne Gro's head into the diner table, or there's a couple other scenes where he like, you know, he starts to blow up or whatever, but then he like is always able to kind of like bring it back down. And he's so good like at like telegraphing like anger and like rage at stuff too. Like I love, like one of my favorite lines in the film is when he's talking with Van Zant on the phone after there was, you know, like they tried to trick him at that empty
double cross
theater. Double cross. Yeah, they tried to double cross him at the empty drive-in theater, and then he calls him up, and like Van Zant's like, "Oh yeah, I didn't hear how that went. You got the money right." And he's like, "You know what I'm doing? I'm talking to a dead man on the other side of this telephone." Like it's so cool. And like just seeing him on the payphone there, and I was like, he's just bubbling with anger. Like, oh, it's so cool. And then Pacino,
great scene too. Like the setting of that abandoned drive-in was like, I don't know, that was super cool. And then like even just them driving over, you know, like the hills that are built into the drive-in, and like
the cars are like completely bouncing up and down and
shooting his pistol through the windshield as he's going like boom, 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 boom.
So cool. Awesome. With Chris up on the hill with the rifle, like
Chris is a top shot, man.
Yeah, dude.
Like that dude.
Marksman. Yeah. So cool. So yeah, I think this movie's awesome. I love heist and crime stuff. Like I mentioned like Goodfellas earlier. That's a different kind of crime or whatever, but it's just always so like fun and compelling to watch bad guys do, you know, be good at their jobs, you know, and they usually eat it, you know, and they usually get punished for it, but to see them like go through emotions and everything is so fun. So yeah,
5 piles of Gus puke. That's my rating.
5 piles of Gus's dog
and 2 bush lights.
Yes,
2 bush lattes
for the farmers
to pour on top.
The farmers bush lights. Yeah, for the farmers bush lights
specifically
for the farmers.
Yes,
I tried to find like a single bush that I could bring on to do this recording, and I could not. So
with the Iowans,
I was like, it would have been great. And then my backup was the champagne of all beers, but the grocery store I went to didn't have singles, so I was out of luck on both. Publix, what are you good for?
Can you even buy a single of Bush? Does that exist?
Well, it's the same price.
I thought it only came in 36 packs.
Yeah, it's the same price as a 36 pack, I think, if you just buy a single. So you might as well get the whole thing. Yeah. Well,
all right.
Any other? So like, Chris, along these, this type of movie, either the type of movie or maybe key actors. Any other recommendations? Like,
okay.
What's your Netflix algorithm if you liked Heat?
Yeah, if you liked Heat, you'd probably like doing the heist levels in Grand Theft Auto 5.
Perfect.
Phantom Menace.
Yeah, the Phantom Menace. If you like Natalie Portman's character. No, The Town is a really good one. If you haven't seen The Town, it's it's got Ben Affleck and Jeremy Renner, and they are on the robber side of things, and there's other character actors you'd probably recognize in it, but then like John Hamm kind of plays like the cop role, and he's not as prominent as like Al Pacino is in this, but it's kind of like what if Heat was set in Boston. And it's a really cool one. Baby Driver is another movie with a lot of like heists and stuff.
That's
and I just love Edgar Wright's stuff, like, and that's like a very cool, like, and very slick movie. Like a lot of Edgar Wright's movies are just, they're edited so precisely and stuff, and like Baby Driver's no exception. Like it's just built into that.
Just close your eyes when Kevin Spacey comes in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just have to ignore that part. Even in that film, like they do bits with like the masks where they're supposed to wear Michael Myers masks, like from Halloween, but they're all like
it's Austin Powers.
They're all Austin Powers, Mike Myers, like all that kind of stuff. Like a lot of heist movies that came after this, like you just go watch the opening scenes of The Dark Knight, and a lot of The Dark Knight in general, like the feeling of Gotham in that movie. It's so heavily shot, it's obviously shot like in Chicago and everything, but it very much wants to be like in, a dense urban city and have that be like pretty central to the film and everything. Go watch Michael Mann's other movies too. Like Collateral, if you've seen that one.
Pacific Rim.
Nope. I mean, watch Pacific Rim, but like it might not be in the Netflix algorithm. I love Pacific Rim, but no, Collateral.
Oh, sorry, Michael Bay. My apologies.
Wait, Michael Bay. I'm so lost on like how you got there. Anyways, Collateral is a movie from 2004 that Michael Mann did with Jamie Foxx and Tom Cruise, and it's one of the rare films where Tom Cruise plays the villain in the film, and it's like Jamie Foxx is a cab driver and picks up Tom Cruise. And Tom Cruise is like a hitman and is doing hits, like, but forcing Jamie Foxx to drive him around. And like
I've seen clips from it.
Yes.
Because there's a specific clip I think that floats around where Tom Cruise shoots some guys in like an alleyway.
Yeah.
And it's like, and everyone's like, it's like textbook, gun defense.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, I've seen
this
that clip
movie,
as well.
so Heat and Collateral both kind of share that kind of anecdote. There's a reload in the heist shootout in Heat that Chris Shaherless does, where like he like very quickly empties his mag and like loads up a new one, and like there's a very specific moves he does with it, and I guess they would show that clip, like Val Kilmer was super proud because they would show that clip as like an example stuff in certain like military and other like defense schools or whatever. And then that one from Collateral, it's like a thing where they teach it in defense stuff because he has a pistol on his hip, and it's like if somebody else has a gun in your face or whatever, the specific way he like disarms them by like moving out of the way and then like pulls his gun out and like shoots him, like from a low center of gravity. Yeah, like it's a thing where they teach it, and they're like
keeping the right leverage and like keeping your center like close to yourself. So
yes,
you have,
like all of that kind of like
quick movement stuff. And like small. Yeah, it was like I watched a video where someone like broke down like why it was like textbook, response to that situation.
That's the stuff Michael Mann lives for. So yeah,
textbook.
Yeah, I would want you to something I mentioned the Rewatchables podcast earlier. One thing that they do that drives me insane is that they do not announce the next movie in their series. It's just like the episode will drop. So I'd like to preview the next movie that we're going to cover on here is going to be 12 Angry Men from 1957, directed by Sidney Lumet. So tune in for that one. Yeah, next month.
You got a whole month to watch it.
Yeah. Cool. And wanted to make sure I threw that in there. But is there anything else we wanted to cover, or we can say our goodbyes.
I think you got it. Great job teaching us
Great
about
job
this
by
film.
you guys.
Yeah.
Thank
It's
you.
a very Midwest goodbye. We gave our ratings about 15 minutes ago, and just now actually get into the end. So it's on brand.
Still haven't left the room.
Yep.
It's good. Well, we do appreciate anybody and everybody who took a listen to this. We hope you have now either paused and watched Heat, or you're going to go watch Heat right this very second.
Yeah, dude.
It's only 3 hours. It's
yeah,
not that
even
long.
though we've spoiled the whole thing for you, you should still go see it.
Yeah, you should still.
There's
watch
so
it.
many
good.
things that's still in the movie.
Yeah.
There's a ton of scenes we didn't cover.
We didn't even talk about other stuff. That stuff happens. They'll
We
go
didn't
see
talk
it.
about going to BJ's on Alvarado at 2 a.m.
Touche. So, like Chris said, we will watch 12 Angry Men and come back with a whole new cast of characters here on our show. But we'll see you next month on the Fun
All
Bucket
right.
Film School.
Thanks, guys.